and welcome again to another episode of 5 Plain Questions, a podcast that proposes 5 questions to Indigenous artists, creators, musicians, writers, movers and shakers, and culture bearers, people in the community that are doing great things for their communities. I'm Joe Williams, your host for this conversation. My goal is to showcase these amazing people in our Indigenous communities from around the region and country. I want to introduce you to Molly Obomsawin. Molly Obomsawin is a bassist, composer, vocalist, and citizen of the Odanak First Nation. Obomsawin's increasingly broad body of work spans jazz and roots music, indie rock, and experimental sound. An international touring artist and celebrated componist, her current projects include her eponymous-free jazz ensemble, the rock band Dear Lady, and Julia Keefe Indigenous Big Band. Obomsawin's expansive practice models 21st century indigeneity, challenging the complacency of our times with lush, bombastic, and at times haunting compositions. Molly has been blessed to study and perform with notable musicians, including Esperanza Spalding, Raven Chacon, Taylor Ho Byram, Dave Holland, Angelica Sanchez, and many, many more. So, with that said, let's jump into this conversation with Molly Obomsawin. Thank you so much for joining me on 5 Plain Questions. It's really great to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Would you be able to introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and what your background is.
Yeah, Obomsawin, Talisi Moyaket Bumswain, Nuchi Odanak, Elsegundakuk. I said, good morning, everybody. My name is Molly Obomsawin. I am from Odanak, the Odanak First Nation on the Elsegundakuk River, which is known by some as the St. Francis River.
And what is it creatively? What is it that you do?
I am a bassist. I'm a singer. I'm a composer. I lead several projects, including a jazz sextet and a rock band called Dear Lady. I also am in part of the Indigenous Big Band led by Julia Keefe. Score films. Yeah, I do a lot of stuff, but I'm a bassist first and foremost.
That is so cool. And the jazz quartet, I've been listening to some of your tracks recently and just getting lost in them. For the listener, you have to check it out, but we'll get into that later on. So throughout our life, we're influenced by different sorts of people and different environments. What are your biggest influences?
Wow. A few. I think my biggest influence was the environment I grew up in musically in my hometown in rural Western Maine. It's a part of the world that people don't know a lot about. It's a really interesting and complicated history of colonization and settlement and cultural sort of crossfading, because it's a sort of in the borderlands between some regions that were fought over for a really long time by several different entities. So growing up there, I was surrounded by all these folk music traditions that kind of just like nestle in the foothills of the mountains there. Cape Breton tunes coming down from Nova Scotia, Cape Breton area, Quebecois, fiddle playing, Acadian tunes, old-time tunes that come up the Appalachian Trail, which ends in Maine, and ragtime is still played there. There's sea shanties that people sing in the area around Farmington, Maine, where I grew up. So that was like a very, very huge influence on me. And then, of course, being in community and hearing our folk songs, the Abenaki songs, the Wabanaki songs that we sing. Big influence. I guess I'm interpreting that question as a musical creative question, but I also grew up with a lot of political activism in my family and in my life. So like non-musically. And I grew up in a barn that for a while, at least, that was when we moved to Maine, I was 5 years old, and we basically squatted in this barn that was used as storage by the Bread and Puppet Theater, which was like a political theater organization that got its start in the 60s, anti-war activism. And that was kind of like the community that I grew up in, this sort of like anti-war, anti-imperialist organizing space. And that barn had all these like huge paper mache sort of like props that were used in the big parades. You might have seen those pictures. And I think that growing up in that environment was also very influential on me.
I think you've just described the most magical growing up experience of all the guests that I've talked to.
Oh
Uh,
my God.
it sounds almost whimsical in the sense, in this what a space there.
Yeah,
Uh,
whimsical, but also severe. Like it's very strange, sort of, yeah, contrast there, I guess.
I imagine. Um, Sort of a follow up question to this and your introduction. Music wise, what was the first album or the CD or download? What was your first one that really stood out for you that really grabbed you musically?
Um, there are three that come to mind. Um, I won't go too deeply into them, but my family actually, my dad's a musician, and I grew up going to his concerts. He played a lot of like bar gigs, bar and grill, uh, and so I heard him playing a lot. But we didn't have, other than that, like a ton of music playing in the house that I remember. I think probably just because of like limitations of electricity, honestly, in when we were living in the barn. But I remember hearing the Louis Armstrong and Ella Fitzgerald duo record playing a lot. So there's a lot of duets. I remember Buena Vista Social Club was like a classic that my dad and mom always had on. And then there's this, my mom's kind of this like hippie, like she's like a Jewish lady from New York. And she I don't know if you've been to a lot of these like sort of like New England like hippie stores. They usually have like a CD rack with like these very generic sort of like ethnic records on them. And she picked up this record called Arabic Groove, which like I really loved as a kid. So those are the three that come to mind.
That's incredible. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, that's that's great. Um, so what? How did how did your music career develop? Often I pose this question to artists on their careers developing in college and post college.
Mhm.
How was that journey for you? Because I imagine maybe your music, big, I want to say career, but and maybe career is the right word. Probably started well before you were 18.
Yeah, I think so. So in Western Maine, with this robust fiddling tradition, there's this fiddle camp that happens every year. It's like so dorky, but it was my life starting when I was like 12 and throughout the rest of middle school and high school. And it's intergenerational. There's all of these different fiddle styles that I described, and you get to meet people and learn from people who are professionals, who just do it in their kitchens, at home, who like teach in schools, who tour. And I think that's like when I really saw the path that I could take and ended up taking in terms of a career. But really like learned that music was an entire there's like this entire network and like matrix of like musical worlds that existed that I wanted to be a part of and explore. Yeah, so I was like 11 or 12 when I started going there.
Hmm. And how did that progress then over time as you've gotten older?
Um, yeah, there was a lot of folks who were there who ended up going to study in Boston at various music schools, New England Conservatory, Berklee College of Music, Emerson, like just, so many colleges in Boston. And there's a strong uh, traditional music scene in Boston because of the Maine connection, because of everything. And so I met those folks. I saw that I wanted to be a part of that. And I ended up also going to this jazz camp that was like quite obscure jazz world that also happened to be in Farmington. It was like an avant-garde jazz camp. I started going to that when I was 14, and that also had a strong Boston connection. So right after I graduated high school, and even before I graduated, I was making trips to Boston to meet people and play, and then ended up starting a folk band that sort of crystallized in Boston. And by the I was only living and studying in Boston for a year before going to Dartmouth College, where I was able to go with, on scholarship and everything. It was great, but I basically spent every weekend of college away from Dartmouth, just going back to Boston, playing and gigging and touring. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
And oftentimes, opportunities will present themselves, especially during that period. How did those present themselves to you? And could you talk us through some of those experiences?
Yeah. Well, the band that I formed, it's funny. It's like such a distant part of my life now. But they were called Lula Wiles. It's like very folk, like with these two nice white girls from Maine. And but I got like I was really into it, and we ended up getting invited to play at a lot of festivals and like teach at a lot of camps, and it was really really similar to how we all grew up. I met them at Fiddle Camp, and so um, the like festival, there's like a folk festival with like a week of like teaching attached to it, was something that we ended up just doing all summer. And then we would book our own shows, and so we would book them around my school schedule and their school schedule when they were at school too. I was the youngest. Um, yeah, so I guess it kind of just snowballs after a minute.
Yeah. Uh, since that time to what's going on now, what's what are you? How do I pose this question? Sorry, I'm sort of off
Yeah,
my
go
regular
for
script here. Uh,
it.
yeah, can you talk to me about what's going on right now, both in the studio and of course you're performing right now. I think before we started recording, you had a performance last night, and then you came back and graciously met up with me this morning to have this conversation. So, yeah,
Yeah, what's going on right now? Well, so I put out my debut album at the end of 2022. So I guess that was just 3 years ago. Is that right? Just, yeah, full years ago. Time is so strange. And it kind of just like turned into this huge thing. And I feel like I've been touring nonstop for 3 years. I'm so exhausted, and I don't know. My career really took off, and I got a manager, got a booking agent, like toured a bunch, and um, it's kind of a machine, and you after a while kind of realize that you are just like a gadget in that machine. Like you're just like kind of like one of the bolts, and you're the most important bolt, but like you're just a bolt, and it's actually like pretty like dehumanizing after a while because like when do you rest? So I like just finished what feels like 3 years on the road, and now I'm home and reconnecting with my practice and like remembering how to be a full human, not just a bolt. It's really awesome. I'm reading, I'm returning to my creative practice, which is like, this beautiful combination of like fiction and poetry and theory, political theory, and obviously practicing bass and like listening to music, smoking weed. Like I'm just like remembering how to like do what I do. That's what I'm doing right
as someone who has a creative practice themselves,
now.
it's quite difficult sometimes to find time for yourself to do the work that just sort of feeds your own soul. How And I imagine it's probably not been possible for a short while now for you with what's been
Mhm.
going on. But how important is it for you to be able to make time for yourself, to just do something for yourself and to sort of return to your own center?
It's vital, but it's also like, I think it was Tasba Chavez was like on this panel at Sundance last year, and she was just like, when we're working, wellness is like the first thing that we sacrifice, especially as women. Like we're just like, oh yeah, wellness, what's that? Like I'll eat a McDonald's burger because like I just don't have time, and whatever. And like with like wellness is one thing, like making sure our bodies are healthy, but for like being a creator of art, um like this time of like quietness and stillness and like engaging with like maybe feelings of depression or feelings at all, like that's actually what the art comes from. And so like I feel like I've like actually by like getting rid of like this solitude and this slowness, I've like gotten rid of my creative practice altogether. And so it's like absolutely critical. Like I don't know, people are like, well, what's gonna happen with your next record, like when's that coming? And I'm like, if I had made myself less available to the public by touring so constantly, like there would be a next record right now. It's such a strange formula to try to figure out.
Man. This reminds me of a conversation I've had with another guest on the show where um, when they do get back into their studio to create, sometimes they block out the world, and then they're stuck in their studio for not stuck. They're isolated in their studio for months at a time creating, and of course they get back in their head. They sort of get back in those old routines that sort of that generates that creative process. But then they come out of it not having human contact for months or weeks, and they don't know how to interact with people. They get kind of strange again. And I imagine maybe now that you're off the road and you're back in your space, maybe that the elements that create that for that creative process will begin again for you.
I hope so. And I feel like I'm always strange. I don't know. I'm like, oh God, the idea of like getting more strange is so terrifying. but but yeah, it's such a strange balance because it's like you go out into the world and you engage with people and you're like gathering in all these ways, gathering experiences, gathering thoughts and theories and everything that you don't quite realize that you're gathering until you take that solitary time. And but I felt, I'm excited to see those experiences kind of trickle out because I haven't had any time to reflect on them enough to know if I even have anything to write about right now. I'm sure I do, but I think we all kind of get to that point as artists where we're like, oh, do I even have anything to say? Like, have I lost it? Like, where's that thing? Is it going to come to me or have I lost it? Did I just,
I listen to interviews of musicians in their 70s and 80s, and I think they still feel that even though they're,
Yeah.
they've been doing this their entire life. And
Yeah.
but as soon as they get rolling again, it all comes in and it all just lines up. So yeah,
Yeah.
uh, yeah,
It's a feast and famine.
yeah, perfect. Yeah, perfect. So what would you say to the 18 to 22 year old that's listening to this conversation?
Man.
It's a
I
big
was,
question.
yeah, you know, I think the most powerful thing that you can do is if you're into something, if you like something, if you feel drawn towards something, just like keep going deeper into it, keep going closer towards it and following it. And don't be distracted by the idea that you should do something else. You should be, able to do something else or should be on a different track because, society wants you to, um, have like financial stability or like I don't know. I feel like for folks who like grew up in situations of like instability, financial or otherwise, it's a lot easier for us to be like, well, we made it work, so like, why should I go and get a 9 to 5 and like try to chase down a salary or something? But for others, maybe that matters more, and maybe, and I know that sometimes like growing up in instability makes you more inclined to like get rid of your dreams and just chase stability and predictability, I guess. But
Mm.
yeah, my advice is just like if you want to believe that you can do it, you should believe it and you should go and chase it and don't get
Heck yeah,
distracted. Yeah.
heck yeah. So what's what's next for you? What's on the horizon for you?
This year is so exciting because it's just this vast expanse of time to write and figure out the answer to that question. And like I know, I can tell you, Dear Lady is writing. We're getting together a lot to write more music and figure out what that sound is going to be. I just did some recording with my sextet. We'll see what happens with those. I'm trying to figure out what it is for me next. I think it's so easy for artists to like get caught up on what they did once that was successful and try to recreate that. And I'm not really interested in that. I'm just trying to grow and see what that looks like and sounds like. So that's what's next.
With the sextet, did you all perform Lineage?
Yeah.
Lineage is something that has been on repeat for me right now. It's an amazing piece.
Thank you so much. That means a lot. That was like maybe the first totally original song that I composition that I wrote.
Really?
Yeah.
Out the gate. That was it. I have this. I don't want to misstate what it is. But for me, it was just this intertwining arrangement in my head that I could just see and just go with when I listened to it. And that and your other pieces are just amazing. So yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
So speaking of which, where can the listener connect with your music or find you on social media?
Yeah, well, social media, I hate to say it, but I'm still on there.
Okay.
On Instagram at Molly Obomsawin. Easy to find if you can spell my name. And also at Dear Lady Band. And you can find my music. The best place to look for it and to buy it is on Bandcamp. So you can find me there. And that's all my projects are on there connected to my page. You can find Dear Lady. You can find the smaller things that I put out without a label, which is fun and sort of like a little Easter egg for folks who are really interested in the process and what happens between the big productions.
Right on. We'll put link in the show notes for the listener to find. So
thank you.
Yeah. Well, is there any last thoughts you'd like to leave with us before we close out?
No, just Chiluni for having me. Yeah, it's been great talking to you, Joe.
This was an honor. Thank you so much for taking time, especially after a late night last night and this early morning conversation. Thank you.
My pleasure.
And that does it for this episode of 5 Playing Questions. I want to thank Molly again for her time and sharing her story with us. This conversation happened early in the morning, and she had just returned the late night before from her last tour date. She had every opportunity to reschedule, but she didn't. And as you can hear, she was amazing. I feel Molly is about to really, really blow up, and I'm so honored that we had this conversation with her and for you to be able to connect with her. So please check out her website at mollyobomsawin.com and follow her on Spotify, Apple Music, or wherever you stream, as well as YouTube. Her website also has tour dates, so please absolutely go check her out in person. I want to thank you for joining us and spending your time listening to what I feel is a very important story and perspective from our community. Please join us next time as we speak with another incredible person. I'm Joe Williams. Thank you for listening to 5 Playing Questions. Your support helps keep these conversations going. You can follow us on Threads, Instagram, TikTok, and Blue Sky. And to stay connected, visit us at our website, 11warriorarts.com, to explore past episodes, check out our exclusive merch, and sign up for our upcoming newsletter. Every listen, share, and purchase helps support this podcast. Support for this podcast comes from Art of the Rural, working to advance rural culture through equity and collaboration, media, and the arts. Our episodes are produced and edited by Pod for Good. Jesse and the team work tirelessly to create the high-quality episodes you're listening to right now, removing all of my ums and quirks, mostly. Well, that does it. Take care, and I'll see you next time. This has been an 11 Warrior Arts production.